It's 6:29. I guess we could start. I'll let Roger get seated. How are you, John? You're good? Okay, give me 1 minute. Get organized. Okay, it's 6:30 p.m. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board. It's Tuesday, October 16th, 2018. And if you join us in the pledge, we'd appreciate it. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Randy, please.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Wiegand.
Here.
Trustee Everson.
Here.
Trustee Marks.
Present.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard and Legal Counsel Roger Zappa.
Great, thank you. We don't have any public unless our gentleman would like to ask a question or make a statement. No, we're good? Okay. So there's no response to that. Tonight's consent agenda consists of approval of the regular meeting minutes of October 2nd and work session minutes of October 9th. Bills payable in the amount of $117,794.81. We have a budget amendment 2018-10, so we will do a roll call on that, and Randy can read it later. Receive committee and other reports tonight, including road committee work session agenda of October 10th and draft minutes of October 2nd. Recreation committee approved minutes of August 21st and draft minutes of September 18th. Water production report and the fire chief activity report and the sheriff's report, all of September of 18. Planning Commission approved minutes of August 29th and September 10th. I had no report. And September's financial statements tonight.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Sure.
I'd like to see if we could pull out C3, the water production report. I guess the best place to move that would probably be 7A2 under Public Works.
For there, can we, because we won't have Kirk here tonight. We can pull that out there.
Where'd you put that, Dave?
Not up to me to put it any
No,
place.
no.
I was
No, that's
suggesting that
fine.
7A2 would be the
7A2.
appropriate place.
Where is it?
7A2.
Second. C3.
Right there. I'll stick it right by that.
Okay.
Okay. We're okay with the amendment?
Okay, I'll just give you a quick highlight of what the amendment is. It's 2018-10. Authorization is requested to increase revenue and expenditures in the fire fund. 2018 ambulance revenue has been exceeding projections. Corresponding intercept fees are paid in conjunction with the increased activity. So there's a $20,000 change in the plus column on that ambulance transport fee and $5,000 in the intercept, which makes the a budget go up correspondingly. So that's what that's for. Have to, because we're getting more than we budgeted, so we have to make that. So I guess that's a good problem to have.
That is. Okay, then we need a roll call on that.
Trustee Marks.
Present. Present, yes.
Trustee LaRue.
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand.
Yes.
Trustee Everson.
Yes.
Treasurer Johnson.
Yes.
Clerk Rattari is yes, and Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries. Motion carries as amended for the consent agenda.
Correct. So next is the approval of the rest of the agenda. And I would like to add just a schedule addition, schedule work session or special meeting, whatever your preference is for the budget. So we can add it to
Actually,
9B.
actually, you can just add it really under meeting wrap-up. You can actually just,
Doesn't have to be a meeting,
No.
an agenda item.
as long as it's in the regular meeting, we can do that. So maybe for announcements, we can, that's where we can schedule at
Okay.
those sessions.
Budget meeting. So we'll add that to the rest of the regular agenda.
Yeah, that'll be
That's okay.
actually an announcement, so you can bring that up in announcements, and then that's when we'll schedule it.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda as amended.
Support?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thanks for that, Randy. Correspondence not requiring board action tonight includes the charter communication response regarding upcoming changes, and raising the rates, of course. Yes, Ernie?
Seems like every 3 months we get another thing from Charter and that, so it'd be about, I don't know, from my standpoint, it'd be about $2 a month, but looking at it further, townships don't make 10 cents on me and that, by going that. So you look at that, with the 5% we're getting, it's gonna increase our revenue from Charter at the same time.
Dollar just on the broadcast TV surcharge.
Never know, they might even want to broadcast their meetings. Again.
All right, next up is 7A staff reports. We don't really have any staff tonight with us. The fire department, you want to take that, Randy, and give us an update?
Yeah, actually, just a quick follow-up on the fire department. We did have our public open house a week ago Monday that was very well attended, regardless of the weather. It was a pretty crummy night, if you remember right, but very heavy attendance, and I think it was very well done, very well received, and very well publicly participated event. Gave us a chance basically to have the residents meet their firefighters and their EMTs that respond to the calls, have some chance to socialize with them, had some food, had a lot of kids, which was good. Quite a few kids were there. Trustee Everson was there. Most of the board members at one time or another stopped in to say hello. I think it was very well done, and it came off quite well. Just a reminder to everybody, I was going to do it under my manager's report, but we'll do it now. The fire department still has smoke detectors available. They're free, and if you want a smoke detector, the fire staff will even install them for you. So just get in touch with the fire department to set it up. We do have 3 new firefighters that have come on board, and you'll be meeting them probably at your next board meeting. Megan Oji, Lauren Volpe, and David Green were all 3 at the open house. So you'll be seeing them at your next meeting.
We need to put that on the agenda. Are we introducing them?
We will, yeah, for your next meeting. They're going through their orientation right now, and they'll be ready for your next meeting.
Okay. Put that down. John?
I just want to add to the manager's comments. That was just an example of the professional group that we have that work for us and make us all look very good. The fire department put on an extremely well-planned, well-organized, and well-presented exhibit of all of their equipment, and they were there to the members of the fire department, and we couldn't be more proud of what they did that night. I couldn't be, and I think that it wasn't just a presentation. It was a presentation made with care and with commitment. And well done. Thank you.
And it was a participant-type activity. They showed kids and people how to put out fires, had actual live fire demonstrations. They had their technical rescue gear set up so you could actually operate some of the things that they use with the Stokes baskets and the pulleys, and had the backwoods rescue equipment out. So it was pretty good. They even had the state police had their rescue, or their search dog out and was doing demonstrations, pretty amazing demonstrations with that dog, what he's capable of doing, or she, I think it was a female, what they're capable of doing. And had quite a few people out in the back of the fire department standing in the rain watching them. It was pretty impressive.
Dan?
Yeah, I'd like to just further a little bit with that. It was very nice to have the community participation also with the county rescue, kind of sheriff's department. You said the state police, and we got to give a big shout out to the Red Cross for
Big time.
for the cooking that they did. We went through a lot of food, and without them, it wouldn't have been as well. So thanks to them.
Yeah, it was fun. We have pictures and anything on our website? Did anybody take any?
We will. There were pictures taken, and I don't think they're quite put together yet, but they'll be added up to the website.
Yeah, these little kids trying to pull the pulleys with the full-size dummy in there. That was interesting, with their little hats on. They were having fun. Well, good. Any other fire questions for Randy that he might be able to answer? I was just looking at the alarm time analysis on the report, 10 o'clock. 27% of the calls were at 10 in the morning. And then it goes to noon and 1 o'clock.
Yeah, this would be expected. Daytime is still our heaviest call volume. Most activity going on in the township.
6 and 7 o'clock too. I mean, it's kind of spread out, but
Travel time.
kind of interesting. Public Works, we don't have our superintendent here. He did give you an updated budget, total, everything, the CIP's in there, and everything's in there for you to look at online. I'm guessing you put it in their mailboxes?
I did. I sent it out, Kirk finished it up last night. I sent it out electronically to all the board members today, and also put hard copies in your mailbox. Basically what he did, following to the discussion that we recently had at the preliminary work session, put together a new, taking into consideration all the discussions that were taking place, revised the water budget, wastewater budget, the CIP program, did a new narrative for each of those, produced the rate breakout for 2016, 17, 18, and 19, so you have that comparison, and also provided some background, additional background. The last 2 pages of the packet is a little background on the stormwater fund, answering some of the questions about the fund balance and how much of it was actually available. So all of that was put in along with the fee schedule. The reason he did all of that is because a change in one spreads over the others. All of the costs are spread between the water and wastewater budget, not necessarily equally, but it's spread across based upon the utility of what's being addressed, so that's why he redid all of those budgets. So what you have in your packets is a fresh new proposal, taking into consideration the items that were discussed at the last work session.
So we'll discuss or schedule that work session at the end of the meeting, but I just wanted to make sure you all had that. And I did add that debt breakdown for you today. You can use that as part of your consideration. And then Dave, let's do Dave's first, see what you wanted to.
It was the water production report that I asked to be pulled out. I guess one of the questions I have is, in July, there's 169% change in the water produced. And I'm not sure where that's coming from, but in general, we're showing, well, as it sets, we're showing a 30% overall increase for water usage this year to date. And if you throw out the 169% as being some kind of an anomaly, you're still showing a little over 12% increase to date. But yet, when they go back and look at the justification for the rate increase, it says due to declining sales. I guess I'm not sure. And the declining sales comment was in the proposed rate increase for wastewater, but wastewater is billed based on water usage.
I think it was in water too, I thought I saw it.
No, there's no rate increase in water, it's in wastewater.
Yeah, and realistically, the 169% comes from July being a very dry month. We sold a lot of water in July. There was a big demand in July, but I think what Kirk's referring to is if you go on a trend line, we're still on a downward trend in terms of demand over where we were. And that has to do with construction materials, different types of plumbing fixtures that are being used that actually use less water. So basically what has happened is that over time we have developed a water system to serve the planned growth of the township, which has been happening. The growth has been happening, but what that original plan, I believe, did not take into adequate consideration is the water saving measures that are being taken in current construction with restrooms, lavatories, things such as that. There's actually overall less water used. We've got these anomalies, and that's one of the reasons, that 169% increase in July over last July is one of the reasons that, I've been proposing for a number of years, and again this year, is that maybe we set a flat water rate for a period of time, maybe 3 years, to do those rides up and down based upon whether we have rain or we have dry or whatever. Last July, if you'll remember, was pretty wet, so our sales were way down. This last July, the most recent July, was really dry. We had very little rain. However, as you see in August and September, we actually went way down because we had a lot of rain. We had some really significant rains. So, rather than being hostage, and I really don't like that riding up and down and up and down and up and down every other budget cycle, I've recommended, and I still recommend, that we look at setting a flat rate, basically, and then adjust it every 2 years or 3 years to give the residents a little bit of a break and not having to wonder, why is it up this year and down next year and down last year and up next year and all of those kinds of things. Just set up flat, and after a period of time, then analyze it. Go on the same kind of cycle we do with our water rates with the city. Every 3 years, we do a water rate study, and that adjusts the rates for the next 3 years. And I just think that makes sense going forward. It would certainly simplify your budget issues, in your budget discussions with Public Works. You'll know exactly what it's going to be for 3 years, period.
Well, I guess back to my original question is if it's showing a production increase, then it's got to be showing a sales increase.
Should.
And I can appreciate his suggestion that we're using more efficient fixtures, but nonetheless, we're showing an increase in sales. So if you have an increase in sales, then how can we justify a rate increase based on declining usage? Doesn't make sense. The last thing I wanted to comment on was we've been talking for over a year on getting a water loss category added to the end of that, and the reason that we didn't have water loss added to that is because it trailed a month behind. The billing trailed a month behind, and he couldn't get them lined up, but we're into October. I would think we could at least have accurate water loss figures through August. I'm just wondering why we haven't added those to the graph yet.
Yeah, actually, when we started the budget process this year, I mentioned that to him, and he said, I told you that I came to the last board meeting and said we couldn't do it. The numbers would be all over the board, and I said, the board still wants to see it. So
I don't understand the numbers being all over the board.
I don't
It'd
think
be
they would
interesting to see that explanation.
Yeah, I don't think they would necessarily be all over the board. I think basically what it would amount to, and I think we have it, it's just a matter of pulling it off the system. For those of you that did the tour with Lenny down the well road down to the well field, I mean, he can generate any kind of a report that you want to see, and one of those reports could be water loss, because most of what happens when we have a water loss, we have very few breaks. I mean, if you have a break, it's going to be hard to identify how much water was actually lost. You're going to have to look at that over time if there's a break. But when we do things like draining the tank, and when we do things like flushing valves and flushing hydrants, we know how much water is used, and that can certainly be generated in a report. So I'll get together with Lenny.
And I think all I'm looking for on that is I want to know how much water is lost through the system, unaccounted for, whether not fire department water, not draining the tanks, but what's actually unaccounted for water that we don't know where it went. We have to assume it's a leak. I've dug into it far enough to know that you can pull up a report for any month you want on the amount of water that was pumped or produced. So there's, in my opinion, there's no excuse that we can't get that.
No, certainly, it can be printed off. It would be somewhat of an extrapolation, because we can know what we can account for. In other words, the tank draining and the fire department use, we meter the fire department use, hydrant flushing, all of that. And you're right, what would remain would be the unaccounted for loss, and then where do you find that? And that's the other piece. It gives you an idea, basically, of what your system might look like, where you might have.
You do a trend on
Yeah.
that, and you check it over the years, and you can tell if it's going up or if it's staying stagnant, and that tells you what kind of shape your infrastructure's in. And that was the whole thing we went about almost 2 years ago now. We were talking about the road millage question, and where we're gonna replace the water mains under those roads or not.
50 years.
One of the big argument is that we can't establish that we're losing an unusual amount of water there, and we still can't.
Right, and I would think that by manipulation of some of the valves in the system, we should be able to isolate sections to monitor what the flow is in those sections.
Well, I know that as far as I've checked, you can select the water production date from the same dates that the bills are figured from, so you can have, within the same day, start and finish, you can have water production numbers. So there's no reason they don't line up exactly. They might be a month late, but you can still line them up exactly, and you can see it.
I'm not even sure they're gonna be a month late with the SCADA system. I think.
Well, I don't believe they should be, but that was what I was told.
I think he should be able to generate reports off the computer system. I mean, we can, if you look at that system, we can monitor that down to locations, basically, computerized. So it may not be exact, but it'll be close. So I'll get together with Lenny and see what he can put together.
What percent are we accepting? Are we using? Do we figure?
Percent.
Well, the average throughout a lot of municipalities, about 10%, the acceptable is about 10%.
Well, it's not really acceptable, but I think a better term would be expected, because of the manual joints and the mechanical joints and the valves sometimes fail and things such as that. There's expected to be some amount of loss, but obviously your attempt is to minimize it, certainly. You're right. I think some locations, I think a couple of our neighbors have a 10% that they accept as a potential loss, but in some cases you're not going to know where the loss is until a hole develops,
Yeah.
or it gets to the surface somehow, and that's how we mainly, in my opinion, that's mainly how we discover where there are leaks. The impact on the surface or flowage, basically.
Well, if you're monitoring the water loss month to month or year to year or quarter to quarter, however you want to monitor it, and you see it increasing steadily 1% or 2% over time, you know that
There's a loss.
things are starting to increase and we're starting to lose more water, and that's when you start, you can forecast when it's going to reach the point that it's unacceptable, and you can start figuring out when you have to start replacing infrastructure, and you can therefore narrow it down to where you even have to replace the infrastructure. I think we need to put a little more science into it instead of just waiting until water comes bubbling up out of the ground and then look for money.
Well, I think we now have the capability to identify that electronically, and then I'm not certain, but I think possibly we can narrow it down to an area, and then if it looks like it's getting bad, you can televise that area. You can run a camera down the pipe to see if you've got any breaks, or if there's.
As long as we're in the whole subject, I'm curious when we're going to see a report on that asset management program.
I don't know that.
I think they're, Ernie's got his hand up, but I think they're just about finished with that. It's about to, I know he just got a notice from the DEQ about the date coming up. The submittal date is coming up soon.
Well, it had to
Well, it's
be
gonna have to
submitted
be.
by the end of the year, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's even before that. They have a preliminary, I think a preliminary date that they want to see the preliminary plan.
Bernie?
Following up on Dave, if you set up the process for putting down the amount of water that's pumped, the amount of water that has lost, or you want to call it whatever, you set up the procedure, and you start doing it month by month, quarter by quarter. The first probably 3 months probably won't tell you much, but once you get out of ways, you start looking at these things, they'll start jumping out at you. Things are not working just right. You have to have that historical data to do it. If you don't have the historical data, you can't do it. But you need that, a starting point of this. And then we have to start tweaking it wherever we can to get better data, and by better areas in that. So the biggest thing is starting it and seeing what we come up with.
Yeah, well, we have the system. I mean, you know, well, I think you were at the well, I think you were there, weren't you, when we went down to the well field? Okay. At the main computer at the pump house, at the main pump house down at the well field, Lenny can graphically put a picture up, basically, to show whether your flow is even, spiking, whatever, certain times of the day or whatever, so we can track all of that. I think it's just a matter of asking the right question.
Okay, so you're gonna get together?
I'll get together with
tomorrow?
Lenny.
Okay. We might have something by the end of the week. We could do something and put it in our mailboxes.
I guess the question based on this water production report that's coming up here in the next work session is a little better justification of the wastewater rate increase that's been recommended.
Yeah, and that may be, I don't know if he's addressed that, and I, in all honesty, I haven't had a chance to go pour through it yet. I just got it this morning, but what I sent out to you, he may be addressing that in the, either the narrative or in the budget figures. I'm
I went
not
through it,
sure.
not
Oh, you
addressed.
did?
It's
not?
the same,
Okay.
it's the same narrative that was there on the last one. It's because of declining sales, which I just don't understand.
It's just that he's referring to the long-term trend, but you're right. I mean, if you look at this, it's up and down, it's up and down, it's up and down every month. And, you know, and that's, to me, you know, if I was a water customer here in the township, I'd wonder why we're, you know, fluctuating so much. And that's why I think we should seriously consider setting a floor, a flat rate, basically, for a period of time and see how that works.
Well, if you got residents out there that are paying attention and we tell them we're gonna increase their rates from 11, whatever it is, to 14, whatever it's gonna be, if you start looking at the rest of the board packet, I would think a lot of people would be in an uproar.
Yeah, we're not in the same situation as some of the neighbors. Our system is not a failing system, and, you know, where you're seeing 25, 35, and 50% increases in some of our neighboring communities, we're not there. You know, we don't have major repairs or things that we need to do in our system simply because, A, it's a younger system, and it's pretty well maintained. But yeah, you're right, and I don't like that. I don't like fielding those questions about why did it go down 3% last year and go up 6% this year, and, you know, because people do pay attention to that. And I think we can do better by setting a level for a period of time and then adjusting it once every 3 years to ride for the next 3.
Okay, well, if we set a work session for next week or something, he'll be back from vacation too, so we can have that information to add to it. I told you last meeting that we're kind of at a stall until they figure out what they're doing in Lansing, so as soon as Dulcie has something, she'll get back to us. Nothing's changed right now. Attorney report, Roger?
Well, several of the things that have been worked on in the last month are of an ongoing nature. We had a joint use agreement well underway in the form of drafting on the 30-acre parcel easement and terms, and I contacted the agent to see, to get some details that we needed to finish that, and learned that the purchasers have backed out of that deal. So it's still for sale. Had some follow-up with Semco on the easement through our Wellfield property. As you'll recall, several months ago, they made an inquiry in terms of how we wanted to dispose of any timber that's on the property. We retained a forester who looked at that and essentially concluded that the cost of us removing the timber is about what it's worth. So there's no, and we've relayed that to Semco at this point. The We've had multiple zoning issues of kind of an ongoing nature, including a fairly complex land division split that, actually 3 land division splits in 3 adjoining sections of property. That was in follow-up to a November 2017 report that I had issued, and they have gone ahead and followed the recommendations of that, and Jason is working on examining the land division request and had asked for my input on that. We have had a number of ongoing discussions with the possible redevelopment of a fairly blighted property in the township that keeps changing directions, but that's ongoing as well. Have reviewed a safety information form drafted by the Planning Commission and should have a brief report on that in the next day or so. A number of other smaller issues that we've had, a personnel protocol issue that crossed my desk, but that's essentially Cliff's Notes version of the things that have arisen since the last report.
Great.
Lynn,
Yes, sir.
for all the, when Roger's working on all these different subjects, do all those requests go through the manager first before it goes to Roger?
Pretty much.
Is it? Okay.
Coordinate the-
Well, let me clarify that. No, they don't.
Not all, some.
Should they?
Not necessarily. The protocol that Marquette Township has adopted many years ago was that any one of the officers may request an opinion or request legal advice. And by officers, I mean the supervisor, the clerk, and the treasurer, because they have some certain unique duties. For example, I don't think I had any FOIA request questions this month, but the clerk will occasionally contact me with an unusual FOIA request that might be received on how it should be interpreted or how it should be responded or what type of information should be redacted, because there are some fairly complicated statutory provisions on what we are required and what we are required to produce and what we are required not to produce in some circumstances. So the officers also have the authority. And then also, in certain circumstances, the department heads may contact me directly. For example, if we have we've got the stormwater management ordinance, and we frequently have requests for easements. Similarly, if we've got a developer who's extending a water main or a sewer main, when those get turned over to us, the main portion, not the laterals, we need to have access and we need to have an easement that corresponds so that if something breaks on it years down the road, we've got the right to get in there. So the water department will contact me to review easements that we get in for a new development directly without specifically going through the manager on those circumstances. Having said that, the vast majority of things go through the manager, but not everything does. There are some exceptions to that, and we had spent, it's a number of years ago now, but we had actually sat down and discussed what makes sense for that protocol.
A while back, we talked about policy governance, and we decided that everything's going through the manager. The manager will, forward it on, or he'll check into it. That's what I was just trying to think of. I'm hearing all these reports now, and I think we're getting away from that agreement we talked about, So
Well, not really, because most of those
Are
things-
we getting away from it?
I'm involved in those discussions.
Right.
Before they get to Roger, with the exception of the easements, because those are things that are set up by ordinance, and you've already adopted the ordinances, so that's a function of the ordinance. But, some of the things like SEMCO that originated through the supervisor and myself, so we jointly got to Roger. When I have labor issues, I go to Roger. When I have just general operational questions, some resident issue comes up, the fencing that's gonna be coming up here pretty soon came from a couple of issues that I got in touch with Roger on about what's our liability, what's our responsibility type.
I just don't want to short cycle the system that we all agreed upon, that the manager will be in charge of knowing what's going on, who to go to who, and
Yeah, and we did, as Roger said, years ago, we sat down with all the department heads and decided, internally what our protocol was gonna be. In other words, if the fire department has an issue that comes up, in the middle of the night, they may or may not get a hold of me, they can get a hold of Roger directly, or, it's something along those
You
lines.
appreciate that in the middle of the night.
Well, it happens, I mean,
Well,
it happens.
A fire department issue, it's now several years ago, but we had one circumstance where the fire marshal became aware of a fairly dangerous situation, two of them actually, two different ones within the township during the course of inspections and one just by accident. And we needed to have some fairly quick action taken to intervene.
That's good.
That's something that comes up maybe once every 7 years, though. It's very seldom that I will receive a request of that nature directly. Normally, those come through the manager, unless it is really unique or fairly pressing.
And there was there are a couple of other instances where, if it's a particularly labor-oriented issue, I'm gonna go directly to Aaron Graves, who's our labor counsel. Today, as a for instance, the fire chief and I were having a conversation, and the conversation included a discussion about what happens if the fire department responds to an emergency call and the victim is armed. What do you do with the handgun? What do you do with the weapon? How do you handle that? What if it's somebody who's under 21 that's working for us, who can't legally handle one? So we went directly to the prosecuting attorney with that question. What's the protocol? What should we be following in that example? So we got that answer.
I have no problem when you're doing it, Randy. I have no problem when you're doing it. But we're talking about the different ways of handling situations, and we agreed upon one, and I just wanted to just point it out that, are we doing it all right, or?
Yeah, basically what you basically have done through policy governance is you said that all those things come through the manager, and as the manager, we've got an internal protocol of how that works and what things I've authorized other entities to move on, directly to Roger or directly to, well, basically Roger, not directly to Aaron. I'm the only one that goes to Aaron other than the supervisor. But short answer is most, but not all. Some go directly to Roger.
Just don't mean to keep droning on, but another example of just this week, I do not ever have direct contact with the committees or committee members, even the chair people. I sought permission from Randy to have direct contact with someone from the Planning Commission on a question that I was reviewing. So that's the protocol too, is I will, if I have the need, I don't just willy-nilly start investigating these things on my own.
That's fine.
So.
The other thing we do too is we go over Roger's bill and verify that those are the calls we made or the questions we asked, or both Randy's and I look at them, so we know. Anything else for the attorney? Okay, thanks for that, Roger. Community linkage, I was reading this over and over when I was putting my the agenda together. And this is, my understanding by the definition is that if there's something that you want to share that you're hearing from the community, this would be a good thing to add here. It is designed to be worked in tandem with our annual plan of business. But if there's something you want to share when we get to this spot, feel free at what you're hearing from the public. Policy discussion, 9A, consider resolution supporting submission of PAR Plan Risk Reduction Grant Program for the ice rink security fencing. Randy.
Well, as you know, we've spent a lot of time developing the ice rink facility and took some great care in its design and I'm going to call it security fencing. It's not really security fencing, it's more safety fencing, and it's basically designed to keep things that are supposed to be inside the ice rink and not in the neighbors' yards or in the park. We have found over the last couple of seasons that even though we have regulations posted, and we have a prohibition against slap shots. Neighbors are finding large numbers of pucks in their yards, and we have had damage to 2 properties adjacent to the park. One, the house directly to the side, and the other house directly across the street on Summit Street. They had a car damaged, and the one directly to the side, the offside, had some siding damage done that we had repaired. So what I came across is our power plan that we belong to, our insurance agent, basically the Township Association's insurance arm, has a risk reduction grant program. So I want to put in a grant request, for expanding that fencing taller and a little higher around the sides, to try and mitigate the activities that are getting the pucks and the roller hockey balls out of the rink. That application requires that the governing body adopt a supportive resolution prior to submittal. So that's why it's on your agenda tonight. I do have a draft resolution in your packets that I'm asking you to act on tonight, so I can put together the grant request, get that submitted, and hopefully get the fencing height put higher before the season starts.
Do we have to do this specifically for fencing? Is that what your request is, or?
It does have to be specific to what's being requested.
Because I was reading the recreation meeting minutes, and they've got some recommendations they're going to make, and they're talking about a roof, and so I didn't know how much flexibility we had with this.
These are smaller grants. These would not be something that would be applicable to structural like a roof. These are in the neighborhood of $5,000 to $6,000.
John?
I move to adopt the resolution proposed asking for the ice rink security fencing grant.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion or questions?
I do think where the Recreation Committee is going with those recommendations is looking more towards the DNR grant processes, the bigger dollar processes with local match.
They're over 100,000, yeah.
Did you say it was only a foot higher?
Oh, no, probably another 12 foot.
Oh, okay, good.
Get the
In
curve,
addition to the
right?
motion would be to authorize this clerk to sign the.
Correct, yeah, and what we're talking about is basically right now what we have is straight up fencing. This would add to the height and then curve inward. Similar to like a baseball backstop.
Nothing else? Randy?
Trustee Marks,
Yes.
Trustee LaRue,
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Trustee Everson,
Yes?
Treasurer Johnson,
Yes.
Secretary is yes, and Supervisor Durant.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Board committee updates. That falls to you, Mr. Dave.
Yeah. Let's see, the Planning Commission meeting from October the 10th. The commission received a request for a special use permit for a proposed short-term rental at 309 Eagles Nest Road. Property is zoned rural residential. And that was scheduled for November 14th at 7 p.m. And additionally, the commission received a request from the Marquette County Planning Commission to discuss issues and opportunities addressed within our own master plan as they consider the Marquette County Master Plan amendments. And the Planning Commission is going to schedule that meeting with the county sometime after the first of the year. Their master plan amendments is due at the end of 2019. And finally, the commission considered a proposed text concerning political signs, and the public hearing for that was also set for November 14th at 7 p.m. The road committee, still working on the transportation facilities plan. And we did another work session to that end on October the 10th. And then we're setting up with staff to do a road trip to review the roads that are recommended for maintenance for next year. We're gonna get that done here between now and the first part of November, so that we can turn in a recommendation to the board for, so we can get our bids out a little bit earlier. The rec committee highlights from tonight's meeting we'll have at the November 7th meeting. And that's it.
Any questions for Dave? All right, thank you. Committee appointments, I just want to give you a follow-up and then ask a couple questions before I go too far. Dan Shanahan will represent the fire department, as Ron did as the fire chief, on the DDA and the safety committees, so that's not an appointment, that's just he's replacing Ron as he's leaving. So my question is, would you like me to gather all of these applications and recommendations and do them all at once on some specific date? Or can I give them to you as I get them, so that these people know that they're approved and they can start making plans? What's your
Sooner the
preference?
better. I would think as soon as you get them, bring them to the meeting. You know, I mean, you don't want to wait.
Yeah, I don't want to wait till the last minute and then have
Right.
somebody back out or change their plans, or, so if I give you one or two a meeting, that would be all right?
That'd be great, because then they know where they stand.
Yeah. Andrew's been calling, and I already have probably 2-3 positions I can fill, and it makes it a little easier than doing it all at once. Okay, I will do that for the next meeting. All right, we lost our public unless Lise wants to say something. No? Meeting wrap-up. Do you want to do announcements first? Does anybody have anything to share? Yes, or Randy?
Yeah, couple of election announcements from the clerk's department. Saturday, November 3rd, the township office will be open from noon to 2 for any absentee ballots that need to be received or given out. Monday, November 5th at 4 o'clock is the last time you can get an absentee ballot, and it can't leave the township hall that day. Tuesday, November 6th is the election, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And Wednesday, November 7th is our regular scheduled board meeting, and it was moved because of the election, 6:30. As of today, I have 545 absentee ballots issued. I'm probably predicting between 700 and 800, which will be close to 1/3 of the township voting absentee. So that's actually a good number.
Then you don't count them until the actual night, right?
Yeah, we do, what we do is we collect them and we keep them, we collect them, we enter them in the computer as they come in, and then on election day, we're gonna probably start early. We open them and run them through the machine, so, just like regular voting, so. We have an actual absentee precinct that will actually just do that. So it's a lot easier for the other precincts, they don't have to deal with that, so. So we actually, the absentee precinct will be at the township hall, and there'll be 3 people in the precinct, and that's their job for the whole day, is just to open up the envelopes and run the ballots through
It
them.
takes all day, I suppose, with.
It takes all day, especially when you have 800 of them. Because the new machines are not that quick, really. You know, I don't know, when you remember when you voted and you put your machine, your ballot in, it doesn't slide right through anymore. It goes in, waits for about 3 to 4 seconds.
Reads it.
And actually, it's taking a picture of it, that's what it's doing, but then it goes into the bin, so it takes a lot longer now than it used to, so. So that's why we're gonna start them early. And then they have till 8 o'clock that day to get any absentee ballots back, so. So they'll be here till 8.
Any other announcements?
It's budget session, we can do it here.
Right, I just want to get that out of the way. Did you add something, John? Something to
We're
share?
gonna set a budget session?
Yep.
Let's do that first.
Okay. Well, I'm guessing it's Public Works, that's what I just assumed. And I suggested at the last work session that we actually set a special meeting in case we wanted to make a motion. So whatever your pleasure is, you want to just do a regular work session? Randy?
I would suggest, because time is running short, that we just start the regular budget process. Typically, if you don't have any additional questions with regard to fire or the general fund, I think there were still a couple of questions about the general fund that needed to be addressed. I can get those finalized and get those going, and then get right into the regular budget work sessions with the Public Works, up to the board, obviously. But I think we answered or addressed a lot of the questions in our preliminary sessions. That'll give us a chance to get the budget books put together, so you've got the entire binder, at least with the fire fund and general fund pretty much finished, and then the proposed Public Works budgets to work on. My impression was there's not a lot.
Not much
There's
changes.
not a lot in fire or general fund that you had concerns about. It was mainly Public Works.
That's why I figured we'd just do a Public Works one, and we can spend a couple hours on that pretty easily.
Well, if you can give us a few days, we can get the budget books put together so you have the entire book in front of you before you have that meeting.
I was thinking next week. We've got one meeting Thursday already this week with the road commission.
We got one next week, too.
Yeah, succession plan,
How about the 26th?
Friday, the 26th. What's your work schedule, Randy?
26th is fine after 1.
Okay. And do you like 1 to 3?
Yeah, 1 to 3 is fine. It's actually Pete's birthday.
26th?
Yeah,
Really?
You have to do cake or anything?
think we'd have to.
Do I look like I need cake?
Some of us might.
Well, in honor of that, could we move to the next week?
Well, I think we should do it that day.
Yeah.
then,
Oh, that's a
in
good
honor
day
of
to do
that.
it.
Will he bring cupcakes?
Yeah, I'll bring cupcakes.
All right, Friday, October 26th.
1 to 3.
That's not good for you?
I'm just one, but no, I'll be out of town.
Oh,
No,
okay,
is-
next week.
Is that primarily gonna be Public Works?
If you want to make it that, we should all be here.
I
Finish
can
up
do the
on-
25th, but I just can't do the 26th. I'll be leaving early morning the 26th.
I've got
You're
a
going hunting, you can stay home.
meeting on the 20th.
Well, you be gone the next week, too.
Well,
Okay.
I'll be out of town for a
So,
little over a week.
What is it? Okay.
Monday, the 22nd? Is that, I hate Mondays.
Not good for me.
No,
Monday, the,
No, won't be good
22nd?
for me either.
Okay,
But
good.
you can go ahead and do it,
Next
but I
Monday?
won't be
Are we
here.
not
So
doing
I'm
the
saying for
26th?
the 26th.
Well, I was just trying to figure out if we could get all of us that
What
day.
session are we talking about on the 26th?
I'm suggesting Public Works.
Public Works.
So I think we should all be there. Tuesday doesn't work, we've got a different meeting at 2, Randy. And then Wednesday's 1 to 3, unless you want to change the work session Wednesday. Randy's got time to repost it.
Drop the employee and put Public Works in that?
Yeah, because that's more important.
I can do that.
Want to do that?
24th?
Yes.
One,
That'd be
you have,
public.
you
One
have
to-
one
1
on
to
there for
3.
the 1 to 3 day.
Right, yeah.
switching.
We'll
So
take
Randy
that
can
one
just
out
change
now.
the posting.
Just change the
Yeah,
subject.
Yes.
is that okay?
We'll just cancel that one and
And redo
repost
it.
it.
If I'm still alive, okay.
All right, Public Works.
now, will that be Public Works as well?
That's just Public Works.
That is, that's the only one. The 26th, we're not gonna have that.
We're not gonna do the 26th?
Yeah.
No. So
I'll still bring
just soon
cupcakes.
have all of us here.
Is Kirk back on the 24th?
You should be back Monday, he said.
Yeah, I think he gets back the 19th.
So
wait a minute.
We've gotten by Dave's birthday, or
Pete's?
Pete's birthday, and actually, the week following, somebody will be away hunting. So,
It's in the November then.
Lord willing.
Let's start with this. We'll see if we can, what we can get done with Public Works.
well, let's see what happens on the 24th.
If If nothing else, we can do like we've done in the past on the 30th, or no, we don't have a 30th. That's my payroll.
Supervisor can call a work session.
Yeah, but I'd just like to have us all here. Well, let's go with this first.
Yeah, Kirk is
Wednesday.
actually back this coming Monday.
Yeah,
So
that's
then that gives him a week to get ready.
On the county road commission, is that gonna be taped? I wish it would, because I can't make it.
It'll be audio tape.
That's fine with me, I just wanna hear it, that's all.
26th.
And I emailed you guys tonight too and said if you've got anything you want to ask, either get the questions to Randy or give him an agenda item or something.
Do,
The road commission's going to have 2 items they want to discuss.
with regard to Thursday, or Friday, the 26th, do you want to keep that on as a second date?
I
for
think we
Public
should do
Works?
general fund that day, just to get that over.
Did we actually, well, if you're considering those first 2 meetings we did,
Well, I guess what I'm suggesting is Public Works is gonna take the majority of your time, and you do have a formal public hearing at the end of the budget process when you adopt, and if there were any carryover general funds, those should be pretty easy to address. I guess I would suggest you focus on Public Works, that's gonna take you the longest to get through that.
right, that's what we're going to do on the 24th.
Right, but that's only one meeting, it's gonna
You
take you
wanna-
more than one meeting to
I
get
think
through
we could
Public
keep the
Works.
26th. If Dan's got any questions, he can.
Okay, so at least you'll be here for the 24th and we can follow up then. All right, so 1 to 3 on the 26th.
Suggest that's probably a good idea.
You want to just list it as a general budget meeting then?
I'll just have, I think work sessions are better because there's
Right,
less structure.
yeah.
I agree.
But I mean, just general
Yeah.
budget rather than saying.
Well, I think we should just have,
Probably still gonna be Public Works.
yeah,
would
I think we
expect.
should, I'm gonna post those 2 as public works because that's what we're gonna be talking about. And if any public is interested, they
Well,
can
that's
come.
fine, but if we want to talk about other stuff, we want to
Well,
try
put
to
public
keep-
works / general fund.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
That'll work.
But I think on the 24th, we'll concentrate on public
Right,
works.
I agree. So this is public works and,
Do we wanna do anything into that next week? The week of the 29th?
why don't we see how far we get?
I'm just thinking calendars are gonna fill up fast here
Yeah.
with vacations and holidays.
Well, what I started to say was we could do something on the 7th, like the first half hour, or
When
first
will
hour
you
of
be
the
back?
meeting. We've done that before.
Have a work session during the budget?
Pardon?
Have a work session during the board meeting? That works.
Unless you want to come in like at 5:30, that kind of
Well,
just
then-
goes other meetings. that are
That
ahead.
probably won't be a good day. I'm gonna be kinda tired from the day before. I'm gonna be here 20 hours the next before the day. So I probably need a little break.
Well, Thursday, the 8th, you want
That's
to,
fine.
you want to follow up everything?
November 8th, 1 to 3.
1 to 3?
It's a Thursday. And I'll put public works / general fund.
So we're talking November 8th at 1 to 3.
Correct.
November the 8th, I'll give up my dental appointment for
There
that.
you
No.
go.
Public,
And then we have a board meeting on the 7th, so I guess we can also schedule more at that time.
So we've got Wednesday, October 24th, from 1 to 3, Public Works, and then Friday, October 26th, 1 to 3, Public Works in general. And Looking the following week and doing Thursday, November 8th, from 1 to 3. Okay?
Good, good, good.
Do those all in one motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we schedule budget work sessions. Wednesday, October 24th, 1 to 3, that'll be public works. And I'll cancel the work session on employee succession, so I'll repost that. Friday, October 26th, 1 to 3, that'll be public works / general fund. And then Thursday, November 8th, 1 to 3, public works / general fund. That's a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Just to give you, and we'll be talking about this in just a second, my manager's report, but in order to, we right now have planned the general public hearing for the budget at the December 4th board meeting. For that to happen, I have to put the public notice in the Mining Journal by November 20th. So we'll keep that as a focus date. Otherwise, we're gonna have to push that public hearing back and maybe have a special hearing, a special meeting for the budget.
We've done that in the past, and it
Yep.
didn't work out on that too, so.
Right.
Okay. Good follow-up. All right, manager's report then. Where you are.
Okay, do have a printed copy, but a couple of things we want to touch on. John back there?
Yep. Just one.
If he could hit, well, we'll talk about that, because that needs to be modified a little bit. But we do have, coming up on November 27th, starting at 6 o'clock, it's Tuesday, November 27th, is our annual Catch the Vision Christmas tree lighting in the Westwood Mall parking lot between Applebee's and Aspen Dental. We'll be putting the tree up before that, but that will be the night that we'll be lighting it. Starts at 6 o'clock. About 6:30, fire department will be delivering Santa Claus, as they have in the past. We'll light the tree. We'll be having some entertainment, musical entertainment, by two different groups, basically, of seasonal music for the crowd while they're waiting, and then we'll be moving into the Westwood Mall, as we typically do. This year, however, we're adding some food. Super One has stepped up, and they'll be cooking hot dogs and brats and bringing those into the mall, basically, for folks. And we'll have, as we usually do, cookies, coffee, things such as that inside. It's a good time. People enjoy it. Yes.
Well, I was just gonna say about the hot dogs and that.
Yeah, those will be for sale, basically.
But they will be
Yeah.
providing,
Yeah, and they'll be providing that, and they'll be sharing that with us, basically, for our recreational pursuits. So that is coming up Tuesday, November 27th, starting at 6 o'clock. It's a good time, good family event, kicks off the season pretty well. Our holiday season hours, just to let folks know, we will be closed for Thanksgiving on Thursday, November 22nd, and Friday, November 23rd. For Christmas, we'll be closed on Monday, the 24th, and Tuesday, the 25th. And then New Year's Day, January 1st, we will not be open for business either. However, if you have any need for township staff, we do have staff on call for emergencies. All you have to do is call the office number, 228-6220, and then follow the prompts, basically, to dispatch after-hours emergency call-out. Budget process, we just talked about. We do have to publish our public hearing notice by Monday, the 26th, which means I have to have it to them by the 20th. So that's the date that we just talked about. We're right now scheduled to have our public hearing and our tax levy hearing on Tuesday, December 4th. That's at our 6:30 board meeting. And then hopefully the budget adoption on Tuesday, the 18th, at our board meeting at 6:30. We do have to adopt a balanced budget by December 31st. But, we can modify those dates to fit within that, but by December 31st, we do have to adopt a balanced budget. Let's see, just a couple of other items for information. As Roger mentioned, he's been working on agreements with Semco for the extension of their gas line for the new services that are being put into place here at the BLP as well as in Negaunee. We had a sit-down this morning with their engineers from UPENA, basically to talk about some of the details. They're going to be putting the line 4 feet down. It's going to be 4 feet underground steel pipe, no valves, just a single straight pipe. They will be improving the trail. As you know, it's going to be following a snowmobile trail at the top of the ridge, so they'll be improving the surface of that trail. As Roger put out in the agreement that went to them, they are responsible for removing any of the timber and debris that they create. It's their responsibility. On the positive side, in our 40-acre parcel, they will be improving a culvert that's currently there, which is an old culvert, so they'll be improving that and creating a detention basin on the north side of the trail so it doesn't wash out. They're concerned about potential washout of the pipe and exposing the pipe. And they will also be widening an area, staging area, basically for equipment that will then be utilized as a parking area, because a lot of people use that trail to get back to Morgan Falls and a variety of other things. So that will create an area for them to be able to get their vehicles off the trail, which does not currently exist. They'll also be putting some guardrail up in a couple of locations on the bluff side, so that will stabilize it and provide a little more safety for people using that trail. It's primarily a snowmobile trail. It is not a vehicle trail, and it's not an ATV trail. So it's a designated snowmobile trail and bicycle trail, basically. So that was today. I want to remind people that starting with the first Wednesday of November drop-off at North Country, it now ends at 6 o'clock, not 7 o'clock. So that's important to note. So that first Wednesday will now end at 6, from noon until 6. There is also was sent out basically today on an e-blast. We are extending the leaf and brush drop-off because it's so wet right now. People just aren't able to start doing some of their fall yard work. So we are extending that. It will be extended through Wednesday, October 17th, through October 31st at North Country Disposal. And you can go out there any Monday from 9 to 6, Tuesday 7 a.m. to 3, Wednesday 9 a.m. to 6, Thursday 7 a.m. to 3, Friday 7 a.m. to 2. Do we need to take a current utility bill for free drop-off? And it does have to be covered, so you'd have to put a tarp over your trailer or your truck bed or whatever while they're hauling it out. But anyway, through the 17th through the 31st, you can take your grass, yard clippings, brush, up to 4 inches in diameter to North Country and dispose of it. And that's all that I have.
Ernie?
I just have a question. On Lions Park over there, do we actually officially close that for the winter at any given time?
No. Nope, we operate it year-round. Right now, because of some of the issues that have occurred there, we were closing it at 5 o'clock. We're going to be going back to our normal hours here pretty quick. It always closes by 10 o'clock, and that's something that we'll be discussing during the budget process, because one of the concerns you have is the overtime that comes from that. So we'll be talking about the possibility of changing the staffing schedule slightly to be able to have staff basically on present and not have overtime.
Kate?
Excuse me, man. Now with the property on the well part, I'd like to just review that. We went over, we talked about the gate moving and stuff like that, and I'd just like to have us just discuss that one time, just to make sure it's good for you.
Yeah, I have been in touch with the property owners. I've discussed with them, the potential of, now they're fully aware of what the impacts of some of the things that they were talking about and what the ordinance requirements are, should you wish to have more than a single-family residence, those kinds of things on that property. So we've begun that discussion. I have asked them for a copy of the appraisal that was done that they were basing the pricing on. I have not as yet seen that. They indicated to me that it was the buyer that had put together that appraisal, so they may not have one, so
Well, with the buyer back, the sale's not there anymore, but now we're not pushed to
No,
make a decision.
not at
Let's
all.
just take a look at it, what's gonna be good for the township.
Well, and
sometime.
that came up unexpectedly, and it took a fair amount of time with council and a fair amount of time with staff and a variety of things to really get a handle on what it would mean to have a residential development, in that area. And even a single-family household, created numerous, I don't want to say issues, but it brought to bear numerous ordinances, not only our ordinance, road commission ordinances and other ordinances from other entities and requirements from other entities for access and for safety and things such as that I don't think too many people thought about before they started down that path.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about, or make a comment about when going through your fire report, you see the fire report where the fires are, where they're being called to. Very seldom we get a house fire, and that's
Rare.
And it's dangerous to say that, I know, Dan, But, just come to mind that it's not done because it just happens. There's a lot of work that goes along with it. The fire alarm system is part of it. You can make sure people get their free alarm, get in their house to help prevent stuff like that. The inspections and, the fire department, when they make their inspections. So there are a lot of things that go into it, and I think we should be very proud of their programs. I mean, we take it lightly, okay, free of fire alarms, but if people take advantage of it, that's a life-saving thing.
Absolutely.
Well,
And that's why our reports look pretty good, except for the EMS now. So I just wanted to make a comment that we're kind of, it don't come lightly.
everybody could utilize a smoke detector. We're in the heating season. Even if you don't burn wood, you still have furnace operating, you still have electric appliances operating. In most cases, you have space heaters operating, candles burning. Christmas is coming up with decorations, a variety of things. So it's always a good idea to have smoke detectors in areas that smoke would first be detected. Were there an overload of a circuit or anything? So the fire department is very adamant about that, and got a grant actually to go out and acquire the smoke detectors to make them available to the residents for free. And as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the meeting, if you have currently, if you have smoke detectors, make sure twice a year you check the batteries in them. And if you have any questions or concerns about a current smoke detector or wish to have one, please get in touch with the fire department or call the office here, the township office, and we can get the information to the fire department. But they will come out and install it for you. That is not an issue whatsoever. The objective is to have everybody have a smoke detector.
If you have battery-operated smoke detectors, if they're over 10 years old, replace them. They do wear out after a certain or a certain time frame. I personally have 10 in my home. I believe in smoke detectors. They truly save lives. I've seen both ends of it. The other end is not very pretty.
Yep, I have six in my house, up and down, upstairs and downstairs. But the thing people don't realize is that they operate electrically, and they attract dust and particles, and that makes them less efficient in terms of operating. So as Trustee Everson was saying, if they're 10 years old, the industry recommendation is replace them.
I just don't want us to take a look at that fire thing, oh, that's good. There's a reason why it's good, so I
There
just
is.
thought I'd bring that up.
Thanks, Pete. Anything else, John?
I just want to pass on to the board. In reading the Sunday Mining Journal, there were, in the op-ed page, a representative of Chalk Township, who have been following our lead on short-term rentals, put an extensive, well-structured bit of information for their citizens about what short-term rentals really meant. And I thought that was a compliment to them following our lead. But absent from that was the reference about short-term rentals that needs to be always added, as we've added it here. If you have a homestead exemption and you are awarded a short-term rental license, you lose your homestead exemption.
Correct.
And I think that I felt after reading it that if they're following our lead, perhaps we have a responsibility to comment to them that that's another part of our lead that they might employ.
That's tax law.
Anything else for the manager? Okay, Randy, review?
Review the motions. The consent agenda was approved as amended. Regular agenda was approved as amended. Third motion was to approve the resolution for the power plan for the reduction grant for the ice rink security fencing. Fourth motion was to schedule work sessions for the budget. And that's it.
Okay, so all I have right now is Randy's adding 3 new firefighters to our as a presentation on our November 3rd, I think, meeting, is it? 7th.
7.
November 7th. Anything else anybody needs to add or work on? Okay. Any board member comment? Wow. Do we get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Everybody want to go? 7:45.